QTube, what's going on? You guys are tuned in for another Q Pill reaction, and in this dose right here, I'm going to be reacting to popular YouTube streamer and political debater Destiny, who was once in an open marriage and is now getting a divorce, because who the fuck didn't see this coming? But before we react to it, you guys already know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share my content with your family, friends, and colleagues, and your peers so that they can get a dose of the Q Pill as well. Now, this video is going to be a little lengthy because I'm going to let Destiny give some details. I'm going to react to him giving some details about what actually transpired between him and Melina, so that, you know, I'm not just making allegations left and right and trying to blindly assess their situation and analyze what actually occurred. But that's what we're going to do. So make sure you grab your favorite coffee, sit back, chill, relax, pop some popcorn, make your favorite lunch, whatever the case may be. This video is about to be a little lengthy, and we're going to enjoy it regardless. So let's get into it. Now, me personally, before we react to the video, I can't think of a more maladaptive mating strategy than to be in an open relationship, to allow your woman to be plowed, pounded, pumped, penetrated, and inseminated, and you sit back elated because you feel as if you're doing a good thing when it comes to egalitarianism being, you know, promoted in relationships. You know, whatever the man does, the woman should be able to do it, as if we have no biological differences, as if we have no psychological differences. And a lot of times with anything, a lot of people seem to think that relationships and sexual attraction are not biological phenomena. They seem to believe that we're in full control of what makes us do what, how we react to stimuli in our environment. And while it's true we do have a degree of control over it, when it comes to something as visceral and innate and powerful as mating, that's not something you can tread lightly with. That's not something you actually want to play with, because that biological drive is as powerful as hunger and thirst and the need to sleep. Eventually, it's going to make you fold. If you subject yourself to stimuli, sexual stimuli, long enough, you are going to give in. This is why it's so hard for men and women to remain platonic, because they're constantly around each other. That proximity and that exposure naturally cultivates attraction. The more you're around somebody, the more you interact with somebody, the more you engage with somebody, the more likely you are to be attracted to that person. And I don't care what vows you've made to somebody, what oath you've given, what you think you would or wouldn't do. If you're in a situation long enough with the opposite sex, something is going to happen eventually. You're going to fall in love. And as a behavioral scientist, that's something that I understand. It's inevitable, which is why I would never want to get in an open relationship. Besides, my pride won't let me. I enjoy being jealous. I enjoy being possessive. I enjoy being territorial. I enjoy deterring potential mate poachers from my woman. Like, I want my woman to see other men and think, I better not try it. He isn't worth the drama that I'm about to experience with my boyfriend. I better not try it. He isn't worth the potential violence that's going to occur if I engage with this man. I like being that. I like being that. I like being the only man inside my woman. I like being the only man who's desired. I like being the only man who's penetrating and inseminating my woman. Too much pride, too much ego, too much toxic masculinity pumping through my veins for me to ever want to subjugate myself to something like that. But, you know, you have some people like Destiny who you know, they try to be liberal. They want to be egalitarianism. They believe in, you know, good, equal, fair, right, wrong in their perception, and think that there's no biological incentives that could compromise this goal, this utopian goal that you've set for yourself and placed on your relationship. And eventually like I said, you know this is gonna happen. I just can't allow my woman to be fucking other men and me potentially being cucked. That's just not me. But I'm gonna let Destiny break it down. We're gonna react to one of his videos on YouTube. I'm gonna go through the video because I haven't watched it, because I want a visceral reaction to what I'm about to hear him say in terms of what actually transpired with him and Melina, and how all of these things came to fruition, and a timeline of what led to what. And so this is going to be a natural, raw reaction, not rehearsed, not scripted or anything like that. We're going to watch this together, and there will be times where I stop it. There'll be times where I pause it and point out why something supports exactly what I'm saying about how emotional we are when it comes to relationships, and why you can't have open relationships, and why open relationships fail the majority of the time. And they fail the majority of the time because, for one, you have to have two people who are really committed to being in an open relationship, who really know how to demonstrate the adequate levels of communication, transparency, honesty, directness, openness, that most people aren't going to adequately perform. Most people are just not that communicative in relationships, and they don't communicate that competently. They're not that good at communication. And then you have to be able to check your emotions. You have to be able to check your jealousy. You have to be able to keep yourself from doing certain things that impedes on the agreement that you guys have about who you can see, who you can't see, what you can do, what you can't do. It takes a different level of discipline. I mean, I would say discipline and communication are paramount to being in an open relationship, so that you don't experience those emotions and allow them to overwhelm you to the point where you react and impose on those boundaries that you've set in place, and go back on the things you agreed upon in the initial stages when you agreed to be in an open relationship. And then the second component is simply attraction. If you're going to be in an open relationship, you maximize the risk of you being cucked, and you being cheated on, and you being left. You maximize that risk because you're essentially saying you're relying on your woman's ability to be reasonable, to be logical about who she's engaged with, and ultimately not let her attraction to another guy consume her and overwhelm her to the point where she no longer wants to be with you. And that is not a gamble I'm willing to take. But those are two of the predominant reasons why most open relationships, open marriages fail. But let's react to the video. Destiny. See what he's going to explain in this video about what happened. It says Destiny exposes all of Melina's lies with proof. So
we've been fighting over it like dumb. There were another group of, I thought it was only two, but even as of today, I'm getting more DMs from friends. I just had to burn basically two more friendships at the time because Mel had engaged in what I would consider to be incredibly inappropriate talk, where she decided to dump 5 years worth of problems onto mutual friends that we had, that I had like explicitly gone out of my way to share with Mel so that she wouldn't think anything weird was going on. And she decided to, vent completely to all these people. So she goes back to Sweden. I'm coming off all that. I'm a little bit irritated, whatever. As she's in Sweden, I think I'm streaming. She's doing her thing over there. Everything moves sideways for a couple months. As I'm here in the United States, Molina ends up meeting a new group of friends in Sweden that seem like pretty cool. She hangs out with them. Everything is cool. Sometimes Molina does this annoying thing where she's like, oh, I met these group of people. They're so cool. Like, it's cool because, they're all gay and platonic and they're dating other people. So there's no like relationship drama or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool.
Okay, right there. What he just said. Do y'all not know women have a tendency to downplay relationships that they're building with new people that they meet? Oh, it's not like that. Oh, they're gay. Oh, it's it's platonic. He doesn't seem that interested in me. This is something that women will partake in often. If you allow a woman to go out there and explore the world while she's supposed to be committed to you, and you allow her to make new friends, Oftentimes, when you ask her about it, she's gonna downplay anything that transpires with her and other people. She's gonna create a narrative that she can present to you that will mitigate, the worry or anxiety or the degree of threat you may feel coming from these new people that she's interacting with. I don't know how many of y'all have been in relationships and have experienced that, but that is a very real thing. Women will indeed do that. Women love downplaying potential romantic opportunities that would end up blossoming into something more. They love downplaying it.
That never lasts, but yeah, whatever. If you enjoy it.
Are you going to let the greedy heating companies and their crazy high prices decide if your family is allowed to stay warm this winter? Here's how.
I think this was about 4 months ago. I think it was in early August. One of the friends that she'd made among some of the other friends was the Tim dude. And she and Tim, I guess, started hanging out as like friends. And I'm like, okay, it's funny. Now remember, just because I'm not posting logs of things.
Men and women never hang out as just friends. And I hate to use absolutes, but I say never because a man and a woman voluntarily goes out with one another. If they're voluntarily going out with one another alone, that means attraction is present on at least one party's behalf. Romantic sexual attraction that actually motivates an individual to say, would you like to go here? Hey, let's do this. They're trying to spend time with you privately, just you two. That means there is absolutely attraction on someone's behalf. Might not necessarily be the woman in the beginning stages, but there is some baseline level of attraction that is present that compels two people to hang out together.
This doesn't mean I don't have proof of it. If you hear this and you think I'm lying, we can get to that if you want. But I remember me and Melina getting into it's like a small argument where she's like, oh no, like I think everything is platonic and cool. And I'm like, that this is obviously not going to be the case. And she's like, oh, I guess you know my friends better than I do. And I was like, I guess so. And I guess so. And eventually, surprise, surprise, Tim ends up cheating on the girl that he's with, Mel. And then a couple days later, they're like officially dating. And she's like, oh my God, you'll never believe this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I can't believe it. Who would have saw that coming?
Now it's interesting he say that. Who would have saw that coming? If he can say that about seeing that her relationship with Tim wasn't platonic and he knew it was going to turn into something, then how couldn't he see this ultimately coming? How couldn't he see this divorce coming? How couldn't he see this exact situation under these exact circumstances imminent? That's what I don't get. See, Destiny is a smart guy. Destiny is a very intelligent guy. He was supposed to call into the Whatever podcast when I was on the Whatever podcast back in October, I believe. He was actually supposed to call in. I thought he was supposed to come on. I thought it would be interesting to finally sit down and be able to have some engagement with Destiny, share some ideas, maybe some friendly cognitive sparring, but that didn't happen for whatever reason. But he's an intelligent guy. It's just that I think he gets so caught up in politics that he forget that human nature is a thing. And that human nature always wins. I think he forgets that. At least when it comes to survival and reproduction, human nature always wins. The proclivities that we have, that we've evolved in terms of sexual selectivity, reproductive strategies, those are always going to win. In one way or another.
Also, as a quick heads up, because Tim might be getting super mindful right now, because I can tell by the way that he types in chat. Molina is, I don't know what changed, but in the past 6 months, at least, Molina starts to lie a lot. So I think one of the reasons why Tim has been so confident in attacking me is because he has no idea how much I know about him, because Molina probably tells him, oh no, I don't talk to Steven about you really at all. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but I can't see how he could have so much confidence coming at me with so many things, considering how many stupid things I know about this guy, which is funny and tragic at the same time, I guess, but whatever. So initially, I'm kind of like, well, okay, it seems kind of weird that when we've talked, you talk about how, cheating is, the most, horrible thing and blah, 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 but, this guy did this to his girlfriend, and now you guys hang out, whatever, hey, knock us about, have fun. I'd say, in the first month of their kind of, hanging out, she tells me, a couple weird things, and we kind of, joke because Melina and Tim are kind of like me and Melina, and that the Tim guy is, ultra clingy, And Melina is more kind of the one who like wants a little bit more space. And I even joke about this with her in DMs. It's like, oh, look, you found your Melina, basically. So like, for example, Melina might be out at a party, or she might be hanging out with friends, and they're all kind of like drinking and having fun. And at one point, Tim wants to go home, and Melina's like, well, I think I'd rather stay and like hang out with people. And then Tim starts like spamming her DMs, like, no, you need to come home. This isn't fair. You're making me feel horrible. I need you to come home. Blah 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 blah. Right? He's like that can't happen. She has to. Okay. Which I think is like funny, like reading it from her, and I'm like, oh Jesus, yeah. As things push sideways another month, I get a little bit annoyed. So one of the things I get annoyed about in our relationship a little bit is that it feels like I'm held to a much more stringent standard on information informing Melina on things than she is for me. And then I start to like realize a couple things as we're like talking and things are going on. And at some point, I think I asked her, I'm like, are you like, because I remember after a month, I'm like, at first I was thinking maybe they were hanging out occasionally, maybe they're not. And I realized, like, wait a second, is this guy like at your house every single day? And then I realized, like, okay, for about 4 to 6 weeks, he'd been either staying at her house every single night, or she was at his apartment.
Getting all your daily nutrients
Fucking
is hard
ads.
work. But nutrition gaps in your diet are inevitable. But they're
Apartment every night. And they were like telling each other they love each other and all this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, it's kind of weird that you didn't tell me that.
See, and she already violating boundaries. Seeing the dude every day, the guy always at her house, and they telling each other they love one another. Now, I'm not an open relationship or open marriage guru, but I would assume that always having the opposite sex over your house and spending every day with them and telling them you love them is not in the contract. I'm almost certain that falling in love is not in the contract. But we see that doesn't matter to a woman, does it? Because women run off emotion. They're slaves to their emotions.
Until I asked you explicitly, but whatever. Pushing sideways, Melina's trial date is coming up, and she wants me there for the court stuff, which I think is fair. One of the things that we kind of like fought about over the last like month and a half was when Melina went back to Sweden, she thought that I should have moved to Sweden for 3 months. She said that would have been fair because that would have been like a good way to support her. And this was kind of like a pain point or a source of tension in our relationship. It's like, well, I'm trying to help with a bunch of other things. You know, like I completely paid off all your Swedish taxes. I found you like a really good Big Four accounting firm, to like connect you with things. Like I'm trying to like communicate with your tax people. I'm trying to communicate with your accountant people. I'm trying to like pass a bunch of taxes on you. Like I'm helping the best ways that I can, and things I think that are pretty unique to like my skill set. I think I'm doing pretty good in terms of helping you with stuff. And that accounting lady that I ended up helping find, like that lady like kicked out Melina's trials really, really, really good. Her performance is great, and I think probably helped Melina quite a bit. At least her lawyer said as much. But Melina would say like, okay, well, nobody here knows, like why you're not here for me to support me. And like everybody sees Tim, and it's like, so, and I don't know how to defend you. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to defend me? What do you...
Did y'all just hear that? Did y'all just hear the angle that Melina took on him? First, he says that she said that she wishes he would have moved there when she first moved there about 3 months ago, then that would have made it easier. What that is her basically putting accountability on him for not being there and basically allowing her to fall in love. I know this sounds crazy, but what is going on in her mind is she's creating conflict based off of the guilt that she feels that she's fallen in love with another man and basically absolving herself of those feelings of that dissonance, because by saying I wish you would have moved here, then she believes that would have ultimately played a part in minimizing the level of exposure that she had to Tim. And also you see that she's saying, well, I wonder why you're not here. Everybody's wondering why you're not here, and Tim's here, and I don't know how to defend you. What she's doing is transitioning into, how when women cheat, they blame the man for it. They find some way to blame the man for it. Oftentimes women don't even realize they're doing this, but she's shifting the blame towards him, basically saying, well, it's your fault because you're not here. Had you been here, maybe none of this wouldn't have happened. And now I don't feel supported, but Tim is here. Tim is supporting me. You should be the one who's here, not Tim. People should be asking me about you, not Tim. But you're literally choosing to bring Tim along with you. You're literally choosing to let Tim accompany you on these little journeys around Sweden and, go here and go there. Y'all do realize that she's shifting the blame onto Destiny. Women love how to contort blame. They're the mental gymnastics that they do to find some way to absolve themselves of accountability and put the blame on you rivals the gymnastics of Simone Biles. Hell, actually, it might top Simone Biles. Women's mental gymnastics, when they cheat, when they commit infidelity, the mental gymnastics that they engage in to shift the accountability from them to mitigate the dissonance that they feel is on par with Simone Biles.
Okay, whatever. You're stupid, Molina. I also kind of pieced together this point in time that Tim is basically living with Molina, which kind of felt weird because I also didn't get filled in on that. And there's a lot of other small peripheral fights that we've had relating to people staying over. One thing that Molina has tried to do really hardcore with other friends, and I think Tim is also playing this up a little bit with Henry, is Molina and Tim are trying to pass off this idea that I'm scared of losing Molina, or I'm jealous of Molina having somebody over all the time. That's the story that they try to present. But typically, when me and Molina had fights over stuff that she was doing, I was usually just upset because why the double standard? So one thing that we'd fought about a lot for my apartment was that I wasn't allowed to have girls in the bed. Okay, my bed. She's like, no, that's not fair. I'm germaphobic, which she says all the time. Okay, she's like, oh, I'm germaphobic. You can't have girls in the bed. And I'm like, okay.
What I tell y'all, what'd he say? No, that's not fair. That's a woman's angle. Anytime you do something and a woman dislikes it or disagrees with it because it's not advantageous to her, what is she going to say? That's not fair. How often do y'all hear women say that's not fair? All y'all watching this, all the men watching this podcast right now, whenever you get into a fight with your lady about something, I don't want to say document because it's not a study, but document mentally. How many times you hear her say that's not fair, and that is her rebuttal to something that she dislikes or disagrees with? And what they fail to realize is they don't even operate on fair, because when something is in their advantage, that means it's not fair to you. But as a man, you go, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. That is the number one thing that will come out of a woman's mouth. That is one of their paramount arguments that they will express when you do something that they dislike or they disagree with. That's not fair. And as guys, you have to have some testicular fortitude. You have to say, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Life ain't fair. Because if you give women an inch, they'll take a mile. And if you allow them to feel that they're on level playing field with you, that you guys are equal when it comes to your ability to assess situations, problem solve, predict, they're going to take a mile. They're going to abuse that authority. And that's what's going on here. And Destiny doesn't seem necessarily like a pushover, but then again, he seems like a pushover because he looks like he allows Melina to get away with a lot of stuff. So this is why it's not fair should hold no weight when a woman says it. Well, of course it's not fair. It's not fair because you don't assess situations like I do. It's not fair because you don't respond and react to situations like I do. It's not fair because I'm more logical than you, because I'm more stoic than you. So of course it's not fair, because our cognitive capabilities are not the same. Our responses are not the same. Can't get baited into this that's not fair argument that women tend to use when they dislike something that you do.
This fighting got so bad that I remember before she left for Sweden, because she was leaving and I thought she was going to be gone for months,
I'm not on my parents' health insurance anymore, and I work for myself doing a bit of everything. So I found a plan for just $34.
I figured, like, well, I can probably have a girl here. It's fine. Like, I'll just wash the sheets. It's not a big deal. So I remember there was a girl. She was coming over. I told Melina ahead of time. She'd come over. We hooked up. Fun times. After she leaves, I'm talking to Melina. And normally we like chat about our hookups after we have them, which always goes poorly for me. Go figure. And then as I talk to Melina about this, she figures out in the course of the conversation, she's like, wait, why did you have somebody in the bed? I'm like, well, because you're gone for like months. Obviously, I'm going to wash the sheets. It's not a big deal. And we had a huge breakdown fight over this. And eventually it comes out where she's like, it's not about like the germaphobic, I don't want anybody else in my bed. And I'm like, okay. That would have been nice to know ahead of time, I guess, but she accuses me of lying in front of her, or whatever. I'll go. When we get to Miami, Melina gets really irritated the first day, I think, because she said that something has really, really, really happened that's really weird and bothering her with Tim. There was a girl that Melina really liked when she was in Sweden, but she basically never got to hang out with this girl because I found out now that like basically every time Melina goes to hang out with people, Tim always goes with her. He has to for everything. Melina's basically not allowed to see people on her own. He's always going with every single time. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand why you wouldn't just go on your own. It seems kind of weird that like, because you're like one of the most independent women I've ever met in my life. I don't know why would let him dictate like all of your hangouts. And you know, she's like, yeah, well, Tim just doesn't like this girl much. He says that like he gets bad vibes from her, blah, blah, blah. Well, as soon as
So Tim has anxious, insecure attachment. He has an anxious, insecure attachment style. And on top of that, Melina values it. She respects it. She doesn't want him to be insecure and anxious. That's why she allows him to go everywhere. She allows him to be clingy. And what does that usually convey? That she's emotionally invested and attached to him as well. Honoring your partner's boundaries. Honoring your partner's boundaries is what Melina is doing. She's honoring his boundaries. She's respecting his anxiety and his insecurity. And by allowing him to accompany her and be clingy, she's mitigating that in which he feels, which means she likes him. She's giving him reassurance, constant reassurance. Another indicator that she's in love.
as soon as we're in Miami, Melina's really upset because she's like, I'm really upset because I just found out that this other girl that I really liked that I couldn't see ever because Tim didn't like her. Well, Tim took this girl back to my apartment and they're like cuddling, in my apartment. And I'm really upset about this. And two huge things like explode in my mind. Okay. Right away. So the first thing is like, what do you mean he's back in your apartment? How did he get into your apartment? And she's like, oh, he has a key. And I'm like, excuse me? I feel like I should have known that. And then the second thing is, he's allowed to invite girls back to your apartment to bang?
In your bed?
Well, it's okay because like I know this girl, so like I trust both of them.
Wait. In her bed? The germaphobe. She's a germaphobe. He's allowed to bring girls back to her apartment and bang girls in her bed. Whether she knows the girl or not, she's a germaphobe. And last time I checked, being a germaphobe is an irrational fear of germs, which means even knowing the girl wouldn't alleviate the germophobia. You'd still be a germaphobe. Interesting.
We have a mini fight where I tell her, I'm doing whatever I want with my bed from now on, and if you don't like that, pack and get out, because it's the most I've ever heard in my entire life. We fight back and forth on that, and she's like, well, I don't think I can handle that. I'm like, that's fine, then pack, leave out of here. And then eventually, I think she passive-aggressively answers, she's like, well, I'm just going to buy a second mattress, and I'll just throw it over the bed when I come back. I'm like, if you have that mini fight, okay, stupid. I think I stream, and then I think Melina has like a 5-hour call with both of these people. And then eventually, I talked to her at the end of the night, and I'm like, how's it going? She's like, oh, actually, I feel really good. I had to talk with both of them, and me and the girl get along great, and Tim kept trying to, like, insult me or make fun of me or throw me under the bus, but this girl wasn't having any of it, so I felt like the conversation went really good. And I'm like, okay. I guess. But then now at this point, I'm trying to explain why I'm irritated about some of the Tim stuff. It's like, okay, well, this guy lives with you. He's in your bed all the time. It seems like a double standard.
I'm Drew Holiday, point guard. Supplementation
Fucking
is so important
ads.
for basketball players. Being able to get out on the
All
court
these
and be
ads
able to
keep coming,
perform
bro.
every single day
Do I have this
is something
many
that's
ads on
very,
my
very important
video?
to
This
any
many ads
athlete
better be on
who
my
won a
video.
championship.
But Molina always is like really. It's funny because people always explain like I'm the emotional one, or no, I'm the rational one who's like being too cold, and Molina's the really emotional one. Molina's a lot of really good like logical arguments that kind of like end up making me feel like they're kind of logical, right? So her argument is that like, well, this is my apartment and this is my space, but that's our bed and that's our space, so I can do whatever I want with my stuff, but you know, for our stuff at our apartment, it's not fair. And I'm like, okay, well, I pay all the rent here, and I can't use basically 1/3 of my apartment when you're out of the country because obviously she doesn't want anybody setting up shop in her streaming room.
How's
And
that
I
a
can't use my
logical
bed, so we
argument?
gotta sleep
If
on
it's
the couch
if
or
he
something.
pays the
It's
rent,
just annoying. Okay, I get to Sweden. I kind of feel like underappreciated because it's like, okay, well, you don't care that I've paid all this money. You don't care that I've invested all my time, which is valuable to me, by the way, and you don't care, you know, that I've used.
she doesn't care because she's in love, bro. She's in love. When women fall in love with another man, they typically don't care about anything that you're doing. That's not what they're thinking about. That's not what they're concerned with. Their loyalty to you has dissipated a long time ago. Like, it's gone, eradicated. So they're gonna appear unappreciative. Nobody's colder. No one has a colder heart than a woman who no longer is in love with you. Women are the coldest creatures when they don't like you. And to compare and contrast, a guy who had a woman who was once in love with him but is no longer in love with him, he can see it better than anyone because he knows how this woman used to treat him. He knows how he was the center of this woman's universe at one point, and now it's like she don't even know your name. It's like you a stranger all over again. So the contrast is mind-boggling to a man if you've been in this situation. You didn't even know women had the capacity to be that head over heels for you and then that cold towards you. And it's simply because they're not emotionally invested with you anymore. They're not emotionally attuned to you anymore. They're not emotionally attached to you anymore. That level of investment and commitment and attachment has now went to someone else.
Use my relatively unique skill set to find you people and help you, blah, blah, blah. It seems like all you want is like some random guy to just be near you, like worshiping you 18 hours a day. That's what it feels like. It's ironically, it's probably pretty close to the truth. But whatever. We have a really big fight the first night that I'm there over relationship stuff, basically. We kind of chill on that. And then the second day we have her court stuff. I go to the court with her, okay? Thank God I have my Vyvanse. I sit through a 5-hour trial in pure Swedish. I don't know if I'm on the recording, so I don't know if you can see the bench, but I'm back there with my Secret of Father Brown book reading. So I have a 5-hour Swedish court trial thing. But it actually goes really well. Surprisingly so. Like, so well that I think they end up at the end asking if she can get her passport back early because she'd been revoked her passport, I think a couple months earlier. So we leave. Trial's good. We go back to the apartment. Melina engages in a ton of really behavior at this point between me and Tim and her. I won't dive into all of that. We'll just say it was pretty unbelievable. And then a few days later, it comes to be that she's supposed to go to the courthouse because they approved her getting her passport back and she's going to get it back. I don't think this Tim guy's going to be okay with you going back to America. Keep in mind that up to this point, I didn't have any problems with Tim guy at all. I thought he was like kind of like clingy and cringy, but compared to me, everybody's clingy and cringy. I'm sorry I can be cringy. It's fine. I didn't really like ill will towards the Tim guy. When Melina talks to personal people, and if you're a streamer or a friend of Melina listening to this, she'll always say like, oh.
It's crazy to be in the presence of a guy who's digging your woman down and you looking at him, you having conversations with him, y'all sitting in the same room and you don't have any ill will towards him. Nothing. Not an ounce of jealousy. Not an ounce of testosterone driven desire to want to fuck him up. That's crazy.
Steven was always jealous of Tim about, that's not true at all. I even said as much. So I got tons of vlogs. And like, oh, it's cool. You've got somebody to hang out with and you don't feel lonely and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's cool. Because then I can stream and focus on my, she's got a, it works for me. However, I did know, or at least at the time, I felt like I knew that, like, there's no way there's somebody that's like this clingy. You guys have been glued to each other for 2 months straight, every single night together. There's no way he's gonna be okay with you going back to America. And she's like, no, Tim is.
And let me stop it here again, because it's interesting that he just said that. Is Melina not also clingy? Is it just Tim who's clinging to her? Is she not reciprocating that clinginess? I'm trying to understand, because he keeps saying Tim is really clingy, and because he knows Melina not to be clingy, then he's by default labeling Tim as the more clingy one. But there seems to be a mutual clinginess between the two. They're glued to one another. He's not glued to her. They're glued to one another. Like, she may not ask him to come over because he may always be the one who initiates and says, hey, I'm coming over. Can I come over? Hey, let's go here. Let's go do this. But she isn't telling him, give me some space, because she doesn't want any space from him, which means she's equally as clingy. The clinginess is mutual. It's mutual. Because she likes him.
Polly, he's open, like, everything is cool. Trust me, he's like the coolest guy ever. He's so supportive. He's so awesome. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, we'll see. I don't know. So the day of the her passport coming back comes. I think I'm like streaming. I'm hanging out at the apartment. Melina comes back from the courthouse to get her stuff. She comes into the apartment, and she's super stressed. And I already know, okay, because it's not even that I can read the future. It's that I am an empath. I already know what's happening, okay? I absolutely know what's going on. Also,
hey, Ben Stiller here. Right now, millions of refugees and displaced families are facing dangerous
nerds,
and they need our help. Imagine trying to survive.
All right, that's better.
let me explain right here, okay? Because
I had a manic episode. Ads driving me crazy. I'm sorry, y'all.
But Tim and Melina, I think, are clinging on to this fact that Tim didn't actually threaten to kill himself if Melina didn't leave me, okay? If you want to get, like, hyper-specific and hyper-pedantic, that is true. Allow me to explain. So Melina comes upstairs. She's super stressed. And eventually she sits down on the couch. And I'm like, how's it going? And I can tell that she's super frazzled. Like I said, I already know, like, what's happened. And she says, I have a difficult decision to make. So we start chatting for a bit. And Melina's like, Tim just gave me an ultimatum. And I'm like, yeah, obviously, because you got your passport back. Obviously, he said he's been cool with everything up till now, but it's because you didn't have your passport. So he can obviously say these cool things, but as long as you're, like, locked in Sweden, it doesn't really matter what he says. He knows you're not going anywhere, right? So Melina tells me, I was outside. We were walking back to the apartment after I got my passport back. This was in Sweden, yeah. We were walking back to my apartment after I got my passport back, and Tim gave me an ultimatum right outside my apartment on the street. And I'm like, what did he say? And she was like, Tim said that Steven is just way too toxic for you, and he can't stand to see me in so much pain. So I either have to divorce you, or I have to leave him. And I'm like, wow, well, what'd you tell him? And she's like, well, I don't know. I was super stunned because he said he's never done this before. And then Tim claimed that a few of Melina's friends had said that he'd talked to. A few of her friends had said, yeah, they definitely need to break up. They're way too toxic. It's a horrible relationship. And Melina said,
I just get this. I just have this image in my mind of Melina coming out extra dramatic. And Destiny's just like, what happened? Tim just gave me an ultimatum. He told me that I'm either gonna have to divorce you or leave him. And I get the, I mean, I think she's putting on an Academy Award winning performance when she's conveying this message to Destiny. I just, that's just how I envision it in my mind. I just bitch, this is your husband. What you mean? This is your husband. Another man tells you, divorce you, or you can't be with me. I'm your husband. He has no right to tell you to divorce me or I can't be with. Like, that's what I'm saying, bro. All these hoes ain't loyal.
Said, well, my friends have never told me that before. And then when Melina didn't have an immediate answer, Tim says, if you didn't know, Melina has, this is Tim's fault. Melina has issues sometimes feeling like abandonment stuff, or like people aren't like giving her enough time or attention, or that's a big like issue, pain point that she has, right? So Tim says to her,
That's called being a woman.
He says, this is why everybody you've ever loved just left you, Melina. And he turns around and he storms down the street, okay? Very dramatically, or so it's told to me. So now Melina's like freaking the...
Oh, Tim used a classic manipulation tactic. Hit her with an insult in her most insecure spot, and then turn around and walk away on some like, my mother was right about you type shit. And then walk away. Kevin Hart, when he said, you know, just say something crazy that she don't understand, and then just storm out. Every time I come in this mother, you got the microwave on high, man. Leave me alone, and walk out and slam the door. Tim a G. Any man who's a G who deals with women knows you're supposed to hit them where it hurts, manipulate them, have them feeling bad, and storm off so that they're just left feeling overwhelmed with anxiety and about to break down, and they're gonna have an episode. Tim a G. See, Destiny should have actually been taking pointers. He should have actually called Tim and said, yo, bro, Melina flipping the fuck out. I don't feel like I have any fortitude in this relationship. My leverage is gone. I lost my balls. Bro, teach me some of your ways, bro. Take me under your wing. Teach me some of your ways. Wax on, wax off. Like, help me become better at having this woman eating out of the palm of my hand, because clearly she would much rather go eat out another man's palms. If I was Destiny, I would have did that. I would have deferred to Tim for some advice, because Tim clearly got it. When he said that and stormed off, he got it.
Out. She comes upstairs and she's like, yeah, obviously super frazzled. So I'm sitting here kind of chilling, and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of awkward.
What'd I say?
Whatever.
What'd I say?
We have, I think, probably about...
Hold up, what'd I say? I said she probably came in all just theatrical, histrionic, and Destiny was probably sitting there like, what happened? What? I told y'all. And he just said it. That is the scene. That is the scene that I had in my head, and he basically just confirmed that the scene was accurate. I envisioned it correctly.
Like a 30-minute conversation. And at this point, like...
Fucking ads, come on, chameleon. Let go. Okay, I'm fine with that one. That one, I like come on, chameleon.
I'm not like delusional about the state of my relationship. We have had fights. I know what's going on. But I basically say to Molina, I'm like, okay, well, listen, here's where you're at. Obviously, we've been together for 5 years. We have all this history, blah, blah, blah. But we also fight over stuff. Like, there are issues we fight about. Personally, given the length of our relationship and the things we fight about, I feel like our relationship's not actually that bad. Like, especially when we're both happy and good, like, everything is super fun, everything is fine. We do have, like, a couple issues that seems like it's really hard for us to move over, but there's not, like, physical violence. We're not, like, doing crazy. Well, Molina was kind of doing crazy, but I guess in retrospect. But it's not like of all the things that could be in a relationship, like, we've traveled the world, we both make a ton of money, we're super rich, we've got, like, so many influencer friends, we're both doing really well in our career, like, for the...
Now they're married, so I understand Destiny trying to be logical and explain out why their relationship isn't as toxic as Melina is saying her friends and their friends are saying that relationship is. However, this conversation would not even have to be a conversation if Melina was fully invested in Destiny. You know why? Because when you're in love, especially a woman, her friends... her friends, family, no one can get her to see that this relationship that she's in is bad for her and that she needs to leave it. It could be an abusive relationship. It could be a relationship where her husband or her boyfriend is constantly committing infidelity, talks to her crazy, treats her like absolute trash. And if she loves him and she wants to be with him, there is no talking that woman out of it. There is not a second thought of a woman even thinking that everybody's saying we're toxic and what if they're right? And that ain't happening. That's not happening. That shit goes in one ear and out the other when it comes to dealing with a woman who's emotionally attached, invested, and in love with you. You don't even have to explain why your relationship is good to a woman who's in love with you. It could be the worst, and she'll have the most positive illusions still remaining about you and convince herself that this relationship is worth being in. You won't have to do that. So the fact that he even has to do that tells you that she's no longer emotionally invested.
For the most part, I think our lives are actually really good. I will say that, like, historically, one of my big issues fighting with Melina so much sometimes is at the end of, like, fights, I'd be like, well, I feel like we need to chill. Like, our life, we live, like, dream lives. I don't understand how fighting about so much stupid all the time. Like, chill. But, you know, but I mean, also, maybe I'm downplaying, like, my bad contributions to the relationship. That could be fair, too, okay? Yeah, I know. Brittany will jump onto that one. So we have, like, about a 30 to 60-minute talk where I'm like, yeah, so here's the issues of our relationship. You know, if you want to cut it here or you want to try Sweden, like, we can do that if you want. But I mean, like, also with the Tim stuff, like, it's pretty scary. You've only known this guy for 2 months, and you've only known this guy for 2 months, and he's already done a few things that are, like, really weird. So, you know, there could be a lot more.
Not to her. They're not weird to her.
I mean, yeah, it's up to you. So
she loves him.
Sat for a little bit. I think she kind of thought about it for a little bit, and then after a little while, because at this point, I already kind of had a vision of, like, who Tim was in my head. But after this, now I know everything. I completely understand. Like, I understand this archetype of guy. I've joked in the past that, like, these are the most threatening people for me because they have infinite time to dump onto a woman and then use, like, weird mind tricks of emotional manipulative, whatever. So after a little bit, I tell Melina, I'm like, when you're describing these conversations, your tonality is quite nonchalant. Was that how it was during the conversation? Yeah, I'm pretty real about, like, what's going on. Like, I'm not, like, it's not to cry about. Or, I mean, it's sad, but it's like, I mean, I understand if we're going to split here, we're going to split here, like, you know, figure out, then we go from there. At this point, I tell Molina, okay, listen up. Nobody gives an ultimatum and, like, truly expects you to sit there and think about it. Typically, when people give ultimatums, they're expecting you to choose them immediately, okay? This guy is, like, it's obviously he's very predictable in terms of what he's doing. If you, like, probably wait, like, a few hours, I bet he's going to text you, take it all back, and then, you know, who knows, maybe you guys can still be friends or work something out like that, you know?
What the
And she's
fuck?
like, okay. So I think that we
This is the advice he's giving his
I
wife.
don't know if we, like, watched some shows, we ended up chilling on the couch. All of a sudden, Tim, go figure, I think about an hour later, Tim starts DMing Melina, saying, like, hey, are you okay? I think I've made a mistake. And Melina's like, well, yeah, this was really dramatic. And Tim was like, I'm so sorry. Like, we need to talk about this. Can you please come over right now to my apartment? Like, we need to talk right now.
She been
And
not.
then Melina looks at me and she's like, do you think I should go and, like, talk to Tim? And I look at Melina, I'm like, no. What would you?
Good job,
annoyance
Destiny.
levels for this, by the way, are going to start to ratchet up very quickly over long periods of time because keep in mind that for historically on our relationship, if any girl presents even the slightest threat to Mel, they have to be cut out of my life immediately, okay? And now this guy just gave her an ultimatum to divorce me, and she's like, should I go talk to him? I'm like, no, you probably shouldn't go talk to him. Why would you?
I told you. What did I say? What did I say earlier in the stream? I said when it's advantageous to the woman, they don't think about the fact that it's not fair. She completely forgot that it's not fair that he has to cut out women out of his life when they get emotionally attached to him. But that guy is emotionally attached to her and telling her to divorce her husband. And she's like, should I go talk to him? He should have said, that's not fair. I'm telling y'all, women are so oblivious. They have so many biased blind spots. It's insane. It's insane. They cry that something is not fair when it is disadvantageous to them. But when they're in the same exact situation, they won't say, no, you know, I said it's not fair that when you do it or what happens to me, I said it's not fair. So now that it's happening to me and I'm in the same situation, I understand it's not fair to you. Women aren't that logical. Bro, This is why I wanted to react to this live like this and let you guys see without me having seen this at all, because these situations are so standard and so predictable because human behavior is predictable. There's variance in things people do because of the reasons that they do it, but the ultimate outcome in the behavior itself is relatively the same across domains. No matter how you look at it, women behave the same in the same situations. Men behave the same in the same situations. Women react the same to the same stimuli. Men react the same to the same stimuli. It's predictable.
You reward somebody that's giving you an ultimatum like that. Like, you should probably just chill and tell them you'll talk to them tomorrow or whatever. Like, you already hung out with this guy this morning. What the you guys are texting all the time anyway.
Are you going to let the greedy heating companies and their crazy high prices decide if your family is allowed to stay warm this winter? Here's how a former NASA...
This proves she runs
And
the
then Mel was
relationship.
like, well, I think that maybe we should talk tomorrow.
Mel runs the relationship.
And then Tim is like, I need to talk to you tonight. I'm walking around outside. I'm feeling suicidal. And Melina's like, oh. Now, the next day, Tim would go on to say this, and it's funny that Melina and Tim are now repeating the story. Tim would go on to say, I didn't actually threaten if you didn't divorce him. I just said I was having suicidal feelings. And obviously, like, we know what's happening. And even Melina laughed at it at the time. Although now, for Melina to save face, now she's spreading the Tim story. Like, we didn't actually threaten to commit suicide to divorce him. That is true. Technically, he said he had suicidal feelings because she wouldn't go over to talk to him about it that night after he made the threat. If you want to get hyper pedantic, okay? So, there's that. I can't imagine that they would try to come out and counter, well, actually, I didn't. So, yeah, okay. Melina has talked to so many people about this. But unfortunately, I think she's lied to Tim about who she's talked to. So, for instance, Melina was really irritated when I was reaching out to mutual friends, and she had a conversation with some of her other friends. He's talking about Tim because Tim went dramatic a month ago and stuff. He's been a little dramatic since, but he's been improving all the time. I don't find it abusive. I think Steven has made me feel 100 times worse by his actions. So it feels so weird that he has so many opinions right now. And then Melina says, Tim had a breakdown a month ago where he gave me an ultimatum. When I didn't take the option he wanted me to, he had a breakdown where he said that he was suicidal. After that, he tried to beg me to come over. I said no, but he didn't really respect it. He kept pushing, etc. After that, he chilled out. When I was at TwitchCon, he went off on me, saying that poly was bad for kids. He took it back when I said that he was acting manipulative. Later that week, he invited a girl over that I really wanted to see, and it seemed like he only did it to get a reaction out of me. He apologized for it, and we all hung out, and it was fine. I also found out that he had talked some bad stuff about me behind my back to a close friend of mine, which felt a bit controlling. After that, he had one more breakdown when I had to work instead of hanging out with him like I promised. That's like the worst things pretty much, so I understand. But things have gotten better. He says that he wants to change and get better. He apologizes and recognizes his mistakes and says he's learning and he wants to be good. And I see improvement every day, and that's what I'll go by. Then there's plenty of things that he brings to my life that makes me happy. She tells me another story where she's like, yeah, I had to do an interview, and, I was trying to get out of bed, but Tim, never wants me to work or do anything. And when I got out of bed and I started doing the interview, when you came up and I started speaking positively about you, Tim stormed out of the apartment. He got up, he stormed out, he slammed the door. And when Melina texted him, was like, hey, what's up? Or what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to go hang out with that other girl that, that you really want to hang out with. I'm like, okay, Jesus.
Their relationship is a mess,
a couple
bro.
other stories, right? But she comes back to the U.S. She lands. My goal is we're just going to be chill. We're going to have like 2 decent days together where we just like hang out, see how we feel about each other. And then we'll go to therapy and we'll figure stuff out, I remember that she lands at the airport and she comes out and she's wearing this disgusting, gaudy, massive hoodie that says meme ticks on it. And I'm like, my mind is like so unbelievably like right now. Because in my mind, Melina is one of the most sensitive in the world. If we're driving around and there's like a new song on my playlist, Melina's asking like, which girl gave you this song? Like literally, like that's where she's at. And so she shows up in this hoodie. I'm like, this is... And then we go to do the Stacy stuff. Before talking to Stacy, I tell Melina a couple things. One, I say, before we do this, I want all of the money that I gave you the taxes back right now because I don't trust Tim to not tell you to take it from me in the future. And 2, I need you to pay me
Uh-oh,
back
money getting
rent,
involved.
at least on this apartment. Okay?
Money getting
because if you're going to
involved.
move in people and you're going to start buying for these broke, you need to. I'm not going to pay for rent here for you while you're covering the expense of another person. Feels like I'm basically subsidizing their life. That's not happening. So before therapy, thank God, we walk to the bank. I think it's about $115,000. She transfers it all to me, cash from one account to the next. I'm like, okay, cool. Get my money back. Feel good about that at least. He also mentioned something about how I'm making up like the money thing. But again, I think the problem is I don't think he knows how much Melina told me because Melina probably lies to him. One of the conversations we had, I think it was on November 1st, Melina says, do you want me to tell you about Tim or would you rather me not? LOL. And I said, yeah, go for it. And she said,
Hey, real quick, who y'all think she lied to more? Y'all think she lied to Tim more, or y'all think she lied to Destiny more? Which spouse, which spouse of hers do y'all think she lies to more? Destiny or Tim? Answer that in the comments. Answer that in the comments. Just say Destiny or Tim. I'm really curious. I want to know honestly who she lies to more.
he had a bit of a cry today over financial stuff, and he got very aggressive against me verbally. I kind of just ignored it. What financial stuff? And let him have a breakdown. Like, I said I pay for a lot pretty much, and he should probably do his share, especially if he's here a lot. And it was just an interesting reaction. But yeah, I just got very cold. I wonder how much money he actually makes or has saved up. Yeah, he says he isn't making much now because he hasn't worked, and I told him that he needs to, especially if he's going to demand things from me and all. He called me greedy and spoiled, LOL, for making more than he does. And I'm like, I don't want this dynamic. It's not okay for me. And he had his breakdown. I said I'm going outside to eat. He can come talk to me when he stopped crying. He came down later and apologized and said I was right, LOL. Jeez. Oh yeah, and it's interesting too. He seems to have zero interest in the other friend that I said that he was mine with, but he also doesn't want me to see her alone, and like, Blank and I want to hang out so much. We're like texting every day, good night and good mornings. And it's a bit weird because she probably feels like he doesn't like her. I'm not sure. Up here, I responded and said, yeah, this is exactly what I said yesterday, LOL. He's never going to let you go alone. He might be scared of you hanging out with other people alone, and he probably doesn't really like it when you guys hang out with others in a group. He wants it to mainly be one-on-one. Yeah, maybe, but oh my God. Yeah, maybe, oh my God, I really, really want to see her. I've been like crushing all day, so I'm just frustrated. Just go and see her. Why let Tim stop you? Hopefully I get to see her this weekend. I was close to today, but my throat started hurting and stuff. I'll text her tomorrow. I really like this girl. She told me she wrote about me in her grateful journal. What's that? Well, things she's thankful for, blah, blah, blah. And then our conversation ends. But yeah, so like.
Oh gosh! Oh my gosh! Come on! Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Every single claim that I have made, I can back up with like 50 million different. What if she's lying to you and it's just a habitual lie? Every single thing that she's talked to me about, she's talked to a ton of other people about because she overshares. Like, she had the same conversation with another guy. He got upset when I said that he has to pay. He got upset when I said that I pay for most things / everything. And if he wants to be in my apartment and take up space for his stuff, he needs to pay his share. And he called me greedy and privileged. He seems to be more trouble than he's worth. I don't know. I'm just letting him cool off. He got extremely emotional for some reason. You're staying in someone's apartment. You can pay your way. By the way, he does live there. Yeah. Oh, and this is on these stupid dates. 1/11. What is that? November or whatever the 11th month is on the 1st, right? Yeah, and I didn't even really tell him to pay rent. I just said pay more for groceries. Oh, is this just from when you were together in Sweden, or is he living there now? I'm in Sweden now, back for a month, so this just happened. Oh, okay. But the next day, she comes up to me, and she's like, because during therapy, I'd made like a list of like, here's like the boundaries that I need. If we're gonna do like open relationship going forward, this is what I need to happen, or else we're just done because I'm not wasting my time with anything else. And also like, these boundaries are like bare minimum just to even start a relationship. This isn't even have a good relationship. This is like bare minimum. And if you're not willing to do this, like, I'm walking. This is stupid. She's more open to my boundaries. And then she talks to me and she's like, well, here's like, these are the things that I want from you in a relationship. And when she starts talking to me about these things, they just sound like the dumbest things in the world. Like, I don't understand what's going on. So like, for instance, like one of the things she'll say is like, I need somebody who doesn't judge me for not working as much. And I'm like, I've never judged you for that, except for like the only time I've said this is the last 2 months. I got worried because it seems like she was like quitting a lot of her stuff and just spending all of her time, you know, staying up till 5 a.m., like being lazy and having her life be destroyed. Like, it's only been the last 2 months, but like, it's a ton of stuff that I've complained about for the last 2 months that she's pretending is happening, like the entire relationship. And then she hits one thing where she's like, I need somebody who is willing to give me like a lot of freedom and stuff. And I'm like,
Red
Tim gets
flag.
motion sickness so bad he can't even get in Ubers. He can't even get in cars. Like Melina likes,
Two red flags.
and travel. Tim doesn't he doesn't fly in airplanes or get in cars because he's motion sick, and he's definitely not open or polyamorous. So what the is even happening? Why would you tell me? Why would you tell me that you need more freedom? Like I've literally let you have a second husband. Like what the? I don't understand that. And she's like, well, I don't know.
Nah, bro, you the second husband now. You the second husband. You number 2. You boyfriend number 2. But the first one seemed like he'd know what to do in this instance. He the first husband now. Look at me. Look at me. I'm first husband now.
And then I bring up like you can't even hang out with that one girl without without him letting you. And then she's like, well, I can understand why he doesn't want me hanging out with that person. And I'm like, what do you mean you can understand why? I don't like, what's the possible reason? And then Melina's like, because you were talking to her about Tim. And then 2 huge things go off my mind. So the first, and I hate it, Melina has lied to me so much over this thing, and she's so bad at lying, okay? Which is a little endearing, because I don't think she lies much. Or at least not in these, like, more convoluted or complicated situations. So the first issue is that, like,
don't lie much.
I talked to this other girl, like, 2 weeks ago. That doesn't explain why he doesn't let you hang out with her for the past 2 months. So, 1, you're lying. Number 1. And number 2, how does he know that I was talking to this person? And then, she does, like, the trickle truth. She's like, well, obviously they're friends, so they're going to talk. And I'm like, no, because that friend was the one saying that we should delete the DMs because they didn't want to make it dramatic. And I was like, well, yeah, but, like, I'm friends with all them, so I told them to talk. And I'm like, do you mean that you told him everything that I said to that person? And she's like, well, yeah. And then at this point, I'm like, you're doing more damage control for this guy. You're doing more you can to build him up to your friends. And he knows more about our relationship than I know about you. And then I got, at that point, I'm like, I'm unhinged. I fully admit I am ultra unhinged now. I tell her that,
Bro, that's crazy. That's crazy. She's emotionally cheating and sexually cheating. This is cheating at this point because an open relationship is for you to have, I would say, sexual encounters. Fulfill your desire for novelty. Chase sensation, get a fix. And she's completely full-blown falling in love with another man. But he allowed this. He allowed this to get to this point. So the fact that he's unhinged at this point tells you that the issue is with him too.
I tell her she needs to pack all of her and get out. I'm leaving for 2 days. If I come back and she's still here, I'm gonna word both. I say a lot. Okay, yeah, I'm unhinged. I fully admit I'm super unhinged. I call a few divorce lawyers to figure out what is my exposure to an alimony fight. I made a lot of money this year. What's going on? I contact 3 different lawyers. Florida has short-term marriage laws are not very favorable for alimony. We have no joint assets. We have no children. Her career hasn't been negatively impacted at all. She's made money the whole time. For a whole litany of reasons, if she wanted to fight, it would be a long fight and she would probably get nothing. Just because there's not a strong or compelling case to be made for alimony in this case. So I'm like, okay, cool. If she wanted to. I send a mutual communication. I shoot divorce papers to her and I'm like, hey, sign this. I'm done. We're done. Okay. I'm just whatever. I don't even tell her why. I just shoot the divorce papers over to her via an assistant and I say, sign these, get them notarized, and we're done.
I'm Drew Holiday, point guard. Supplementate.
She doesn't contest anything. She doesn't fight anything. She's whatever. We still haven't even talked to each other since she left, remember, because she blocked me. So we haven't even talked to each other for, I think, 10 days. She gets the divorce papers. She signs everything instantly. And then the divorce papers are filed. The Florida court accepts. And then, boom. Okay, we're done. The next day, I get a message from a mutual saying, hey, Molina really wants to chat with you. She got another message this morning relating to her apartment and everything in Sweden. And now she is wants to chat. Also, Melina never really wanted to get a divorce. She just thought that you were upset. She's really sorry that she didn't reach out, blah, 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 blah. And then what I realized what happened was the Florida courts accepted the paperwork and everything the day before Melina got a notice relating to her apartment. And now she wants to DM and say that, like, she didn't want to do the divorce and blah, 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 blah. Even though she signed the papers as soon as she got them. So now at this point, okay, the quantum waveforms have collapsed. And I see through and I understand everything that's going on. I totally get it. This was a few days ago, right? And I think I mentioned as much. Me and Melina get in a call. She basically tries to gaslight me for 35 minutes. Just unbelievable lies. And it's like funny. I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, I can't believe you're not doing the moral thing. Like, you owe me this because I had to pay so much money to move out of the U.S. and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, basically that. For context on that message, the funny thing is when our convo first started, she basically said, I'm just trying to figure out where you're at. I'm like, what do you mean where I'm at? And she's like, well, you sent me a message 2 weeks ago. Remember the really nice one that I sent? And she's like, I'm trying to figure out, like, how much you feel like that still. And I'm like, I feel like the message I sent you 1 hour ago. Yeah, the message I sent her 1 hour ago was really harsh.
I appreciate that, Destiny.
All right.
So that was the video. Now, there was not much to take from it other than if you guys now visit the museum for why you shouldn't get in an open relationship, an open marriage, count on Destiny and Melina's relationship, marriage, to be the main exhibit. Exhibit A. Destiny just explained to us why you don't get in an open marriage and why it's destined to fail. You don't get with a woman who needs her freedom. Everybody needs their independence in a relationship, but a woman saying, I need freedom, a woman saying, I want to go out and be able to sleep with other people, a woman being as headstrong and domineering and manipulative as Melina is, those are the type of women that you want to stay away from. Those are not healthy women. You don't want a promiscuous woman. You don't want a woman who wants to be promiscuous. You don't want a woman who has that DR4 gene in her genetic code, that promiscuity gene. Super extroverted, all about herself, independent. Because that relationship is going to end up in shambles like their relationship did. And it's always good to listen to actual accounts of real relationships, because these are the things that statistics can't tell you. These type of occurrences, the conflict, the banter, the back and forth, the words that you hear spoken to one another, the activities that are done on one party's behalf with another party, especially in cases of infidelity. This gives you a first-hand experience of what the data cannot show you, the actual back and forth and the actual phenomena that occur within open marriages, dysfunctional relationships, relationships with low marital stability, high rates of infidelity, high rates of disrespect, betrayal, lies, all the above. Everything that erodes a relationship from the foundation and ultimately causes a relationship to tip over and fail. So I hope Destiny has now been Q-pilled, because he sees the reality of how female nature ultimately succumbs to her emotions. Exposure, proximity, opportunity will all lead a woman away from you in a committed relationship if you allow those things to happen. If you expose her to a new potential love interest, she's in close proximity to that potential love interest, and the opportunity presents itself for her to be alone and to develop a relationship with that potential love interest, it's going to happen. This is why relationships are typically closed. This is why you set boundaries. This is why you try to mitigate temptation as much as possible. This is why men have evolved to be jealous, skeptical, territorial, possessive, to avoid these type of situations proactively. So thank you, Destiny. Thank you for that video of showing all of us why open marriages are destined to fail. I appreciate you guys tuning in on this reaction. I'm Suave Q, aka the Q Pill. I'll catch you guys on the next dosage. Over and out.